This is our second Tuesday talk of the season, October 5th. And tonight, the Friends of Lanpher Memorial Library would like to warmly welcome Connor Gorham, who is the facilities manager for the Center for an Agricultural Economy in the Food Venture Center in Hardwick, Vermont. We are very pleased and grateful that he was able to share his time with us tonight to give us some insight in terms of what's going on in our county as well as the state, and as it relates to opportunities for people to live out their dreams, essentially. And so anyways, I welcome warmly Connor. Thank you very much. And I'll hand it over to Lucia Carlucci, who will give a little bit more thorough introduction on what Connor's all about.
Good evening. My name is Lucia Carlucci, and I'm a member of Friends of the Library. And Connor Gorham is my neighbor. And through the past few years, I've gotten to know him and his lovely wife. And in speaking with him about what he does for a living, it inspired me to ask him to speak at our Tuesday talks, because his work is very important to our community. And I think he is a wonderful addition to our Hyde Park, to our town and our neighborhood. And he's a wonderful neighbor. So I would like you to meet Connor Gorham.
Thank you, Lucia, for the kind words there, and for the intro, Diane. Thanks for bearing with me on my audio and video and two faces and different names in different places there. But we're making the virtual world work. I'd love to. I have a PowerPoint. It's about 10 slides, 11 slides. It helps showcase what we do at the Center for an Agricultural Economy. It helps identify really our three biggest program areas of the Vermont Food Venture Center, the Just Cut program of farm to institutional processing, and our delivery service of Farm Connects. Hopefully tell a little bit of a story of our history and catch you up to understand what is going on in Hardwick behind Aubuchon's as you come into Route 14, 15, and 16 in Hardwick. Lamoille Valley Ford is our neighbors as well here in Hardwick. So thanks everyone again for having me. I appreciate the connections there. First, I'd like to just explain a little bit about myself, kind of unpack that a little bit more of who Connor Gorham is and how I found myself in Hyde Park. I grew up in Rochester, New Hampshire on the seacoast. I had a desire and a passion for food when I was in high school, and I figured out that maybe culinary school was a good first stop for me to go outside of high school. So I came to Vermont and went to New England Culinary Institute, where I took the bachelor's program there and really understood the love I have for Vermont. It is a New Hampshire shape, just upside down a little bit, or maybe right side up, depending on how you look at it. The world of me coming to Vermont, coming to culinary school, I was unique in my class in the sense of a lot of my classmates had an eye on a big city and they were going to be a chef somewhere. And that excitement was to be in a restaurant industry. And I knew food brought me to culinary school, but I was scared or wasn't excited about the restaurant industry. It wasn't my cup of tea. So with that, I thankfully had a class in culinary school. Whoops. I gotta turn on my motion sensors. I gotta move a map here so I don't go in the dark again. The world of motion. There we go. So culinary school, I had a class called product development, which was basically my job right now. It presented to us of saying, take a product, think about it, try to craft it and bring it to marketplace. Whether we weren't going to actually bring it to marketplace, but it was put a few marketing pieces together, develop a recipe. And see if you could kind of present the class with a new product idea, specialty food product. That class really got my juices flowing. I understood that it was a different pace than restaurant work. It was a different career path that I was starting to identify. And from that, I found out that there was a place called the Vermont Food Venture Center, which I'll like to explain in a couple of slides here. There was an existing building in Fairfax called the Vermont Food Venture Center. And that's kind of a clarifier of, it was an existing entity outside of the ownership and kind of organization of the Center for an Agricultural Economy. Really, our work comes together in about 2011 or so of the Venture Center coming to Hardwick, but I'll get to there in a little bit. Wrapping up my kind of brief background and history, knowing that I found out about the Food Venture Center, it clicked, and I said I would love to be a part of that as my first internship, and then potentially a career path in local food manufacturing and specialty food products. And being in Vermont and being surrounded by wonderful treats and delicious things, I realized that we had a bit of a hotspot of incubator and entrepreneurial like products and ideas. So I got out of culinary school. The Venture Center wasn't in Hardwick. I was trying to find a shift, and I had met with Andrew Meyer, which is right next door to the Food Venture Center in Hardwick here. He owns and operates Vermont Soy and Vermont Natural Coatings. Vermont Soy is a local soy, milk, and tofu manufacturer. And Vermont Natural Coatings is a whey-based floor coating manufacturer. So two different businesses, but both kind of ag-based businesses with their food angle there. I settled into Hardwick. I embedded myself into the local community. I stepped outside of culinary school, trying to think about cooking foie gras and really nice ribeye steaks. And I began manufacturing tofu and soy milk. It was a big gulp, but it was trying to get into that pace and that understanding and develop some experience in the food production world, because I didn't really have it. So I'm now got out of culinary school. I then went to Vermont Soy here in Hardwick. I lived in Hardwick for a couple of years, but really my goal was knowing that the Food Venture Center was coming to Hardwick, and it was going to be built there in a couple of years. And I think that helps shift my kind of intro of what we are and who I am to really CAE history and how that has come on board there. So I'm going to start clicking along with my presentation here. Hopefully y'all can see a little bit of a timeline of understanding. CAE has been in existence for 17 years. Again, I'm putting the pause on my kind of personal background and just explaining just our organization now and getting into those nuts and bolts. The CAE had a small office staff from really that 2004 to 2011 timeframe. We were set up where the Galaxy Bookshop is now in Hardwick, next door to what used to be Claire's Restaurant, a local farm-to-table restaurant. Now is it's kind of sandwiched into the Buffalo Mountain Co-op area and right along, used loosely downtown Hardwick. With that is CAE was developed, founded, and created as a local food spokesperson, an organization to stimulate and create and promote and educate a local food economy. We're our founding directors of our board of directors, where we are a nonprofit 501c3. Our founding board of directors were successful entrepreneurs in the local food system. To name a few of them, we think about Pete Johnson at Pete's Greens, Andy Keeler at Jasper Hill Cheese, Andrew Meyer, as I mentioned, of Vermont Soy and Vermont Natural Coating, Tom Stearns of High Mowing Organic Seeds, Linda Ramsdell, who was one of the operating owners of that Claire's local farm-to-table restaurant, Annie Gilliard of, at that time, was the general manager of the Buffalo Mountain Co-op. Who else are we thinking about? Tom Gilbert. I can't forget about Tom Gilbert. He had started High Fields for Composting, which was a nonprofit educational world of composting, and now has turned to a for-profit farm of Black Dirt Farm up in Stannard. Neil Urey of Bonneview Cheese Farm. There was, I think, a couple other founding board members, but with that, they had a food system and a cyclical food system in it. I hope you can see the beautiful mural that is that circle of life on the left there. That graces our hallway here at the Food Venture Center, and it's like a 6-foot tall mural and just encapsulates you with the jobs and the color and the art and the truly need for those pieces and puzzle pieces to line up and link together to create a cyclical food system. It needs to be a circle. You hope that local economy swirls around and those dollars stay local. If there's a part of this food system, whether it's processing or distribution or the actual production of food and growing food, if a piece of that is outside of our food system, then we have a horseshoe, and then we don't really have kind of what we need in our geographic area. And so it is important to point out that from 2006 to 2001 or 2011, we really looked at the Northeast Kingdom as like our backyard. To begin with, it was the kind of 8 surrounding towns of Hardwick, and then it was broader to the Northeast Kingdom there. We had set up the community garden spaces for people to understand, get a plot of land or soil for them to grow their own vegetables, educate them in that world, start to support the local farmers market here in town. With that is in 2007, we bought 15 acres that is behind the fire department here in town. We now house a beautiful pavilion that you see down in 2019 that we built, and really have just accelerated that kind of outward facing community education, awareness, and advocacy with more staff people and more programs and more workshops, and a once a month Saturday called Grow Your Own happens on the first Saturday of the month. It just happened last Saturday. It was a cider workshop, and it's based off of something that you could grow, you could capture, you could forage, you could harvest, and you could maybe extend a season of the wonderful goods and fruits and things that go around. So again, a lot of our work was founded on that hyperlocal community. How can we support them? The founding board of directors got too busy in their own food endeavors and really needed the spokesperson to raise the awareness in the local food community. I think it's an important pivot point of our organization, of Center for an Agricultural Economy, of that 2012 shift there. When we launched the Food Venture Center, our suite of services, things that we could offer, were broadened from not just our community, but to more statewide food businesses and farmers. And sometimes we can even stretch ourselves to say region-wide food businesses and farmers of surrounding states coming to utilize our services here. And that's where you can kind of see there's like, we look at our work of 3 different pools and criterias or populations of folks: farmers, food businesses, and our community. It has, again, this Food Venture Center, there was really no book on how to operate a really big enterprise like this, and I'll get into how big we're talking about. But it was truly came from homework that we had done, and I want to not pivot back totally, but to that 2009 food systems assessment and the really feasibility of what was happening in the Northeast Kingdom. We had a staff person in 2009 devoted to counting our food system. And I'm going to pivot out of my presentation real quick. Bear with me. I think we're good. And I want to show you to our website that we have a bounty of resources, and one of which is going to be our regional food system plan. Bear with me, it might be a little blurred, it might be a little delayed, but I think we can understand that. If you went in and found this food system plan, there is 137 pages, 35, excuse me, of information related to that cyclical food system. What does the Northeast Kingdom have? And what we did was we counted that food system. It's incredible the amount of information that went into this, the gathering, the interviews, the true documentation of what has the Northeast Kingdom got going on for it, with the true goal of nonprofit work to identify a gap. You're trying to find what a community or what service is needed that isn't quite there to begin with in a traditional for-profit business model. And from this food systems assessment, the most glaring gaps in 2009 were processing space, technical service providers, business advisors, assistants, marketing professionals, that type of world, and shared infrastructure, storage, cold storage specifically. Farmers were speaking up a lot of saying that there's minimal storage and infrastructure here in the Northeast Kingdom. So with that, it was two different things coming together. Bearing with me, I'm back on I did it. Yes, back on the timeline. That food systems assessment showed that we could house the Food Venture Center and create it and put it into our organization as one of its newest founding additions there. I'll get into that in another slide or two of truly what we were adding, what we might not have known what we were adding. But I think I just want to point out that over the next few years, really in the last 9 to 10 years of operation, we've had a couple of these bullet points here that I actually have specific slides for to talk about. Our Just Cut program developing itself and creating itself, the addition of Farm Connects, our work in the place-based educational community, having an actual staff person working with school kiddos. But I think the real important part and the good part is working with the entrepreneurs and the fun stuff. And I'd like to kind of get to that point of my presentation to say how we do that and what that looks like in that world. Another great image or kind of vision of that food system, as we called it, the cyclical world of it. I identified that the processing side of it, actually yours truly, stirring the steam kettle in the bottom right corner, and a distribution world, we're a bit of a gap in 2009, 2010. We filled that gap and continue to fill that gap with our work here at the Food Venture Center and Farm Connects. The existing area has these businesses, but really this is a place-based model. It works for the Northeast Kingdom and what it encaptures, but it could be southeastern Vermont or southwestern Vermont. It could be, it's just you're counting different elements. You have a different kind of place-based economy there. So just another vision to understand what we're supporting, how we try to plan it, and how we're working through. Again, I think it's important to showcase that specialty food business world. But with all this kind of, with the Venture Center coming to town, with the businesses that I stated were our founding directors, there was a bit of a wave that came to Hardwick. And along with that, I do want to tout that there was a book that brought a lot of PR buzz to Hardwick in general. And if I think it's a library group, so I gotta name drop a book in there. The Town That Food Saved is written about the Hardwick community and that kind of thought process of if these pieces in this cyclical world didn't keep looping back, that there's a need for that. And it was that these businesses were helping create economy and job creation and small business development. It's come with kind of a couple different interpretations. It's still a blue collar town that we work here in. And you might ask somebody in Hardwick, like, we didn't need any saving type of thing. But that world that's always going to be a little bit of Hardwick too. And to say to that, of us being the nonprofit, we were also a bit of a tour guide throughout the Northeast Kingdom during this time where the book came out. It became a New York Times bestseller, and people from New Jersey and all walks and shapes and sizes were coming to our door and saying, we want to see this food system. An important part about seeing a food system is a guided educational tour, because you might miss just passing by industrial block buildings or farms that you don't know what quite they're doing in there. So it was our organization, again, that was there for those tours, bringing people out onto farms, feeling it, seeing it, understanding what this Northeast Kingdom was all about. On my time check, I'm 22 minutes in. I am doing really well. I hope everyone else is doing well on the other side. We're again holding questions till the end. I do have a Q&A spot there. So if you have something burning, jot it down and we'll get to it in a little bit here. The Food Venture Center, my second home, not the one next to Lucia, the one in Hardwick behind Abashan. I came on board here in May of 2011. It was after about a year and a half of making tofu and soy milk, and this building had finally been built. Piece by piece, puzzle by puzzle, it was built with USDA funding. Our food system assessment had really showcased and given us a really great key to success. Thankfully, Senator Leahy and Senator Sanders were very big fans of the Food Venture Center when it existed in Fairfax and wanted to renew it and revitalize it and give it a 2.0 home. And so with that came federal dollars, and tied with our food system study and assessment, we had really showed that we're the best place for this in the state. I don't know how many times I've had somebody come to Hardwick and they say, why isn't this in Burlington? Why isn't this in Montpelier? Why isn't this even near an interstate? And it's safe to say that we did our homework and stars aligned as well. We were in a national recession in 2009. There was an incredible economic development stimulus model of the Food Venture Center. It creates jobs and it supports small business development. And Hardwick sits in a rural area with a very high poverty rate. And with that is like check mark, check mark, check mark to use USDA dollars wisely and stimulate economy. The benefit to that is we then got granted a $15,000 or 15,000 square foot facility. It's much more than $15,000. It probably came out close to about $2.8 million. And we keep adding to it of infrastructure updates and this and that and the others. But with that is, if you can see in the middle of our map there, we really have the core of it is 3 different commercial processing kitchens. They have a variety of equipment in there that you'll see in a video. You can see in that bottom right corner of a good example of a setup kind of commercial kitchen ready to enter and go at it with some baking or granola or beverages or hot sauce, you name it. We have cold infrastructure. Again, it was from the food systems assessment, we had heard processing space, storage, and then kind of technical service providers. So that came a little bit farther down the road with the technical service providers. But as we learned more and more about how to use the facility, we got better at being advisors and then bringing in and raising dollars to support business advisors. We have 2 Vermont Housing and Conservation Board kind of partnership positions here that are the dollars are supported by VHCB, and they're really housed here as food business advisors to work here in the Food Venture Center. So again, vitals, talking about the building itself, 15,000 square feet, 3 commercial kitchens, dry storage, freezer storage, refrigerated storage. And then beyond the actual infrastructure, we do have technical service providers, and I'll get a little bit more into that in the next slide here. But it is also important to point out that about 40% of this footprint is devoted to an anchor tenant and 1 anchor business. The sellers at Jasper Hill Farm, one in the same kind of business, they have a creamery here. So they truly have 3 different creameries. They have one at the top of the hill in Hardwick. They have one here at the Food Venture Center, and then they have their original one in Greensboro, which is across the road from their cellars where they age all their cheese. So many different infrastructures and buildings, and an incredible local food business of the amount of jobs they create, the amount of vertical integration that they keep investing into this local economy. It's great partners to have taking up 40% of our footprint for good use. a lot of cheese coming and going, a lot of dairy that comes from a 30-mile radius from here being made into the world's best cheese. You really can't it's tough to beat that value of agricultural economy there. So building 15,000 square feet, kitchens, storage space, offices, and then an anchor tenant built in. We click over to our next tab. I'd love to pause. I'm not going to do this. I don't want to play the game of audio, and I didn't think about the audio with the video, because there is a video that I'd like to play, but only if my phone can play it. So I'm going to try to click it on my phone to play it through my phone, because I want to hear it that way. But it's not on the presentation, so I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have you go to the video. It's a 3-minute video, and I'm going to go to the website right now, because I think I don't want it to derail the video as well, like the recording we have going on as well. So we're jumping back out of this here, and we're going to, this is truly our website at hardwickagriculture.org. And that hot link went to this food and farm businesses tab. And with that is, I want to explain the breadth of our work of that food and farm business. When they are thinking about interacting with us, they find us in a Google search. They're going to first identify and categorize themselves, whether they're a farm business or whether they're a food business, and what type of service is right for them. It comes with a call, it comes with an email, it comes with a drop-in at our door. It kind of comes in wide ranging of an inquiry walking through the door. But it's the fact that we're here and we have about, as we call them inquiries that turn into initial consultations. And so inquiries is a call to see if the service meets their need. Maybe it's not, maybe it's a referral to another building or other infrastructure in the state or region. So that's the inquiry, and it's a bit of a vetting process to then turn into an intake meeting or an initial consultation. And so the initial consultation, from about, I'd say about 60 inquiries in a year, we get 25 to 30 initial consultations. And those initial consultations are what this package in front of you kind of outlines. If you're looking through this website, we're really kind of pitching and saying, hey, listen, are you in need of food business support? I'm going to click on the other tab here. Oh, because I want the food and farm resources, sorry. I want this, there we go. We want them to kind of tailor their pitch to us. So if you do pass this along to friends, oh, I got motion again. There we go, we got light again. I'm not being active enough with my spotlight. The world of this inquiry form is a great placeholder for us in information gathering. It's kind of taking their first step and maybe answering questions that they thought of. They've created an idea, and now they're being questioned on its kind of reality. And I'm gonna I want to click into this inquiry form to show you those types of questions that we're asking. Really, just a name, a business name, a contact information. Where'd you hear from us? And then it's describe your product. Give us a little bit of feedback. Do you have a packaging in mind? Do you have sort of processing equipment identified that you might need? What's your largest batch size to date? What stage of development would you call yourself? Idea only, in early development, safety tested and ready to launch, already in production? Because that could be another scenario. They have a production space and they might just be coming to us for a bigger piece of equipment or better infrastructure. All these questions are really peeling back a layer, trying to have that first engagement of a relationship to see where they're at when they start to answer these questions down below. about the finances. That's really where the rubber meets the road of, will you be able to handle these startup costs only, operational expenses only, or both startup and operational costs? Those are really what we can test them in a meeting there. So this inquiry form gets submitted. I'm just trying to move my page because that's in my way. That inquiry form gets submitted, and there we go. We see a bunch of happy faces and such, a good placeholder. That then engages a meeting. So we have an initial consultation with the three of us here. Myself as facilities manager, wearing a food safety hat, a production efficiencies hat, a equipment and regulatory environment hat. Things that are related to the building here, whether or not they're going to be a production client or a storage client, I start to kind of wear those relationships and connect with folks. Daniel Keeney is a farm and food business specialist. He is really that more broader business planner. We'll look at cost of goods, cost of production, things of the nitty gritties of testing the assumptions of the broader business idea, coming back to people 6 months down the road to really engage them, to keep them going along with that idea. People can get lost in the weeds of the day-to-day, and that perspective, that advising is very important. And again, going back to our food systems assessment, our farms were very loud in saying, we want that support. We could benefit from that. So he also might just go out to a farm specifically and work with them in their engagement, in their element, and go from there. We also have Lily Rout-Kaczynski on our business services team. She's kind of things post-production, moving outside of this building, how to approach marketplaces. She will sit down with somebody and really iron out some kind of logo and color and packaging and like banners and design. The two banners behind me are marketing ourselves and from Lily in that same way. It's how to be the face of a product without being there on the store shelf screaming to people, pick me up, drink me, I'm a new product. That's Lily's work there. We have one other business advisor here that's really devoted to just farm work, and that's Celine Sutera. She's a local from, lives in Elmore and went to Peoples and grew up in Morrisville, but which has been great to engage a farm business advisor and somebody that knows the whole community. It's kind of like, oh, I know them and they know them, and that's my aunt's uncle, and the connection of the world. So I think it actually helps with our network of service providers as well to have a local on the team there too. So again, this kind of 25 to 30 different consultations, meetings happen a year. That video kind of encaptures we can help them with anything from just an idea stage to something that might have a little bit of mustard to it, for lack of a better term. We can kind of meet them where they are. We have a very organic conversation with them in that initial consultation. Let them ask questions, we ask questions, and it settles out till we understand where we both stand once an hour and a half meeting goes by, of what they might need, what they might not have known they needed, and then what they now know we can help them with. And from there, that's the really big engagement, is the entrepreneur wanting to succeed and push this through and engage us again and come back to us another round with 10 other questions that they've surfaced. This picture is really a lot of color and a good placeholder there, but I just want to put it up there. These are things that I look at and think of success stories in our years of the Food Venture Center. We've been open for 10 years and we've had over 125 different farm and food businesses rent our production kitchens. That's just the service of renting that production kitchen. There's probably another 40 or so storage, farm, or food business clients that just rent the storage. They don't even rent a production kitchen. And then there's an exhausted, I would probably say another 50 or so farm businesses that get business advising services that are kind of outside of our doors here. But we have a very interesting model here at the Food Venture Center. We give a building that stainless steel kitchen for this business, a Switchell or Waz Kitchen Creations or Vermont Baby. They are the licensable entity. We are just a landlord to them, really, in that kind of eyes of the regulatory environments. They get their food processing license here at this location. They would get a FDA food facility registration with this location as well. It's not the Food Venture Center that is an inspected entity. We are inspectable, but the food business is really the one that the rubber meets the road. And when they start to scale up and then they reach new marketplaces, that's when food safety things might come up higher for them in their world of like they sell to different marketplaces that might require a higher standard of food safety, or vice versa of they might stay at kind of a middling level and just know that they're gonna come about once a month or so and hit their 15 to 20 specialty food and co-op areas in the States. And they kind of run along with their food business / side hobby / side gig. And then it's kind of, there's the good, the bad, and the in-between, or I said the good, the in-between, and then the bad. There's sometimes that are just one-offs and they try it out and they realize, oh my gosh, I don't want to be making cookies my whole life. I don't want to be making this hot sauce my whole life. Like it was, my grandma tricked me in saying this was going to be a get rich quick scheme, and there's really no such thing. There's real value being learned in a kitchen that's just an hourly rental. So if they rent a kitchen for a $30 an hour rental, they're only renting it for the amount of hours they used it there. And if that was the day that the broke the straw's back, or whatever the saying is, they were saying, all right, well, I just got to pay for this production day. I'll sell these products and I'll just be done with that. The nitty gritty of that is that when we do a good work, when we engage a client and the client is an entrepreneur through and through, when they're innovative, successful, push the needle, invest their time and invest their money, a success model is they outgrow us and they move on from us. And it's like they use our kitchen for 2 years, maybe even 18 months, maybe even a year. And they grow up into their own facility or a newer production facility that's tailored to just their product needs. And that's success. And it's also like, that we keep just working with ones that are at that very baby stage, but it's so much, there's so much kind of cooperative information there to be able to share to the next person that came in and, oh, we've seen this before. Oh, we've seen this before. Here, work on this, connect with that resources that help that person at that stage of business. So keep your eyes out for these products in the marketplaces on the web. Waz Kitchen Creation, I think, is one of my faves there. He's the Australian with his wife front and center there. They're actually from Bethlehem, New Hampshire. They came over once a week on a Wednesday. It was Waz Wednesdays for about 5 years, from like 2012 till 2017. Now, what we call the wet kitchen out back that he rented for that once a week, you could almost close your eyes and open them up and look in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and it's the exact same space. He replicated it. He knew what he needed. He tested the marketplace while he was here, and that gave them the baseline business notion and the sound plan to make the capital investment themselves, to buy their own filler and install their own hood vent, get their own steam kettles, and make their own food production facility. It was a lot of hours, a lot of back and forth, a lot of days where they probably wanted to give up, but a lot of days that they were just like, let's get through this and there'll be a silver lining there. So great stories all around there of any of those faces that you see there. I think that my next page is just a little bit of a farmer smattering there. I didn't want to forget, I kind of went with the food businesses, but these are a few showcases of farmers that folks have worked with. Templeton Farm down in East Montpelier, Pegasus Meat over in the Champlain Islands. The top left there is actually Whitefield Hop Yard up here in Hardwick. They grow hops, which was a really cool project. I think the two things to point out. One is that we had a Meet the Maker series, which is videos that we created. Again, the video I was about to show you for the Food Venture Center, we created another, I think it was 14 all said and done, commercials that were for either a food or a farm business that were grant subsidized and supported. And it was really just giving them back a commercial or a promotional video or something to utilize of selling their farm, selling their products, being the first time they could really get some kind of video PR out there as well. So a lot of cool faces and unique stories that came out of that project of Meet the Maker. Definitely check out our website there to see that. What are other farms that we're looking at here? Wilson Herb Farm, we helped them set up their farm stand this past year, as well as that was my second thing I want to bring up. So my first thing was the Meet the Maker series. The second thing is visuals, marketing outside of the kind of branding themselves is really a lot of the work that farms ask for and can utilize. They're really great at producing food and growing food and working the lands, but kind of how they present themselves and how they promote themselves is a whole nother can of worms. So that kind of help with the one along the bottom there is Peaceful Harvest Mushrooms. They're a mushroom grower out of I think it's Calais or something around that area, maybe Worcester. But again, you wouldn't think of a farmer growing mushrooms, but it's a world of it. Of culinary mushrooms are definitely a thing for a hot commodity value added product. Okay, I got 6:45 on my clock. I want to make sure that we're going to a 7:30, or are we going to a 7? Sorry, if someone can send me a chat.
Yeah, Connor, we usually, the presentation usually is up to an hour. It really depends upon you. And then we do Q&A after that. So you can decide when you want to go to the Q&A, okay?
That's perfect. I need like 10 more minutes of my presentation here.
Okay, this is awesome, by the way. I know you.
Yeah, is it good? Like, I can't hear you guys, and I really hope I'm doing a good job. But
This
like,
is awesome.
No, it's great.
You're gonna have to deal with Lucia when I say it's like, being here for 10 or 11 years, running out of culinary school and finding myself in Hardwick and wanting to work in this building so badly. I'm truly blessed, and I have like the best job in Vermont, at least, maybe the world, but it's like, that's that engagement, that's the passion. You work with entrepreneurs each and every day, talk about like energy and getting you going. So thank you for the time check. All good, getting back on page. Lined in. It's important, but it's a little deviation of the topic here. And I want to state truly a lot of my work is specialty food related, but the farmers renting the processing space of the Food Venture Center were a bit of a lackluster audience when we first opened our doors. We built this building, and in our food systems assessment, they were the strongest ones to present that they need a processing space to add value to their products. And time and time again in those first couple of years, all we were getting were phone calls of a glut of produce or a glut of berries, and that they were like trying to retroactively identify a marketplace. They're trying to say, I've got an overproduction of something. Now's the time I'm going to create cucumbers, or now's the time I'm going to create a value-added product to approach co-ops. Now's not the time. There's levels of planning that goes into a lot of that. It feeds right into our kind of initial consultation work of there's a lot of ducks in the row to get ready for food production. And so with farms, the biggest call they had the produce, we had the processing space, but the link that was not there was the labor and the drive for like actually like just making the products, doing it. They were in the fields. They had all their staff was harvesting and doing other things. And there was such a seasonal shift in when the farmers wanted to come here. It was almost always like this month and last September and October. And they were like, then it would just hear crickets the rest of the year if they didn't really have needs to use the processing space because it's a short growing season. About a year and a half, 2 years into operating the Food Venture Center, again, the best work of a nonprofit is filling gaps and testing those assumptions and getting the best out of the service they try to promote. And so this is why we call this kind of a farm to institution program, but it's really a lot of supply chain facilitation. And so if I can explain, the Center for an Agricultural Economy is the parent organization, and a program of the Center for an Agricultural Economy is the Vermont Food Venture Center. Another program of, or as some people would refer to as social enterprise, is Just Cut. And Just Cut is a food processor of local produce that sources from 15 Vermont farms, plus a few surrounding area regional farms. We source potatoes, carrots, cabbage, and beets, bring them in. We have 4 hired food handlers, a program manager, and we process that into a cafeteria-ready institutional product. And so 4 crops get prepped, sliced, chopped, cleaned, diced, peeled, things like that, to then be sold to an institutional customer. An institutional customer sounds boring. It's really a cafeteria of a college, a hospital, a K through 12 school. It's something ready to go into a hotel pan and stick it in the oven. It's something to go right onto the salad bar or right into a mixing bowl to make coleslaw. This little 6-picture image shows you red cabbage growing, a farmer from Clearfield handing it to us wonderfully, us coring it, taking off the first few layers, and then running it through commercial food processors with trained staff that is then slicing this, making a safe FDA approved product that then can get sold to, that I believe is a line at the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. It could also be at UVM there. So our 2 biggest accounts for Just Cut product is colleges and hospitals. There's 2 and 2 of each of those, UVM College and Norwich University, as well as Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center and UVM Medical Center, are big buyers of this local produce. They either have budgets written towards buying locally, or they're really just trying to change the trend of hospital eating and making healthy food. Like food is nutrition and everything involved there. So we should have good food at hospitals as well. So there's a bit of a supply chain facilitation that we work through. We still rent the kitchen. Oh, it was about that time, wasn't it? About 15 minutes ago. There we go. There still is about once or twice a year, a farm will come and still rent the kitchen themselves as a person renting it. I think of our jam producers that come, their Sunshine Valley Berry Farm down in Rochester, Vermont, way far away. They come up with a bunch of berries and they still make their jam out of it. So it's still, we can bring in farms that way, but then we also have this other way to utilize our building to sell to essentially produce to Just Cut, and Just Cut process it through this line and then sells it to these institutional customers. Again, I said it was kind of lackluster in the first couple of years. We probably had about 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of produce annually processed through the building in the first couple of years. Year to date in 2021, we have 127,000 pounds processed of local produce. It's a full-on game changer. It's getting into mouths that wouldn't have been able to get it if UVM College tried to work with all 15 of those farms independently to try to buy their produce just at wholesale. Gosh, that would be a logistical woe. The world of getting it processed and prepped and source identified still to their door. That's like why we call that supply chain facilitation. There's procurement, there's facilitation of the food system, and there's like general coordination with the farms to begin with, of saying, we want you to grow this amount of thousands of pounds for this price per pound that we'll buy from you at these months of the year, and they have something to plan for. It gives the farm an ability to like do what they do better, as opposed to thinking about all the other food safety things or the packaging supplies or whatever else they need. Let them grow carrots, let them grow cabbage, give them a great marketplace to sell to as well through this program here. So Just Cut is now in like year 7 or 8 of kind of being a social enterprise, and it's truly, I'd pivot to one more video there, but I'm going to hold off on it again. But I am going to pivot to our website because it gives you a little bit more color and shape and size of the sense of shredded carrots. Let me go to our products category because that shows all wonderful. Oh, look at those. Carrots, cabbage, beets, potatoes, cut a couple different ways, shredded, sliced, maybe just whole peeled, bought in a 5-pound bag in a 20-pound box. And that's kind of the world of moving more food to marketplaces. I can think of, like, out of those 15 farms, there's 5 to 6 or 6 or 7 of them that are of decent size and like well-established generational farms. Harlow Farm and Chappelle's Farm of a potato farm down in Williamstown that ring a bell to me. But then another 5 to 6 that are maybe smaller, maybe startup, maybe just growing the first acre of carrots for themselves and seeing what that might work out. What was really fun last year is Naked Acre Farm, which is right up on Centerville Road past our house. I had grabbed a couple of cabbage and then returned some wax boxes back to Ryan when he worked with us the past 2 years there. So he's been able to grow up a little bit in the sense of his cabbage production and really work out those kind of kinks of what he can do in being a farmer. I think there's just one clarifier that I want to wrap up Just Cut with. Of it's a social enterprise that is separate from the Food Venture Center, but it rents one of the 3 Food Venture Center kitchens. So it's here about 4 days a week, 5 days a week or so with its production plans and chopping, shredding, slicing. It's kind of integrated to help support our model of the Food Venture Center. Again, we built the place because we thought farmers would be here. And if they're just not going to be here, we got to rent it somehow. And essentially, it's kind of like the farmer program renting it. CAE staff is still in there. It is still Just Cut employees are the same paycheck that I get as well. And really, my role as facilities manager is a bit of a supervisor of those 4 food handlers and how the day-to-day operations go. So out of our annual, we're an hourly rental building of the Food Venture Center. Annually, we rent about 2,200 to 2,300 hours in the year for the kitchens. There's 3 of them, and then if you could be renting all 3 at the same time, theoretically, that really equates to you could have 6,000 hours in the year be rented. We're at about 22, 23 if all 3 were 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Just Cut's about 1,000 hours in the year, so they're like 50% of our annual hourly rental. It helps support the Venture Center. It keeps us here for other food businesses to come and interact with. But then again, it opens up this marketplace for 15 other farms and growing. 127,000 pounds, and we still have a 4th quarter of the year to go. Like, talk about records here, folks. We're gonna break some records this year. All right, I have I think 2 more pictures on my slide, and then we'll flip it over to Q&A. Oh, 2 more. Yep. Last but not least, it was the last thing on our timeline. It was right before the world got crazy. In 2019, we were advising the gentleman in the bottom left corner, Don Maynard. He had been operating DNS distributors since about, I think it was like 2008 or so. He had rented building here in the industrial park, not in this building, but in the industrial park, and started itself based off of the WIC program, Women, Infant, and Children, bringing dairy and other supplies to grocery stores around the state. He then slowly grew and grew and grew, and really holds the model of a true food and farm delivery service. And that delivery service isn't a distributor. A natural distributor buys and resells products with a potential margin and different price structure there. Really think of us as like FedEx for food. We're like point A to point B, we want you to bring it there, and there's a case rate for what that takes to travel there. That model is unique and is also helpful to entry-level food and farm businesses. That marginal cut in that buy-in to go into a distributor is a deep gulp, and it's like, ooh, am I ready for that? They might sell to places I might not be aligned with. They might sell too much. They might not sell me enough. It's kind of a bit of an unknown and a big passing of the hat. So if a food or farm business can hold that kind of marketing ground to still make the connection to their stores and their customer bases, make the sale, say, hey, it's Connor. I'm looking to see if you want any more ice cream. I bet it's selling off the shelf right now. They can have that same dynamic, but then they'd call Farm Connects to say, I need you to deliver 2 cases of ice cream to City Market in Burlington. It's here, bring it to there. Tying the story together was Don was advising clients and really was showing itself of saying, I can't be on the road anymore. I can't keep doing this. I've had enough. It was like about year 11 of him running a business and staffing about 3 or 4 drivers at that time. And we really heard the words of like, all right, you can't close. This just can't happen. You've developed this model. This is incredible for Vermont's agricultural economy. And in December of 2019, we had a bit of a like, it was kind of like it wasn't a matchmaker event, but it was like, bring everybody's ideas into the same room and say, what could we do to like keep this model going? Could we partnership to own all this? Could we do that? And we just had a bunch of farm and food producers looking CAE in the face and saying, well, isn't this what you guys do for the food system? And that was like, okay, let's think about adding another social enterprise, which is now embedded into it in the sense of, we run Farm Connects now as a nonprofit in our same, we hired those 4 truck drivers. We absorbed those leases of the truck. Don took his hat off and he said, okay, I'm done. And we replaced him with a general manager that we hired. And so from January 2020 to now, we've been slowly but surely adding to those stops, as you can see, all the way from Newport to Brattleboro, 6 days a week on the road. It's a lot of moving parts and logistics and things. For the first 8 or 10 years of our working that I worked here, we would always say, we'll never have trucks in the road. We'll never do that. Well, as I've said, I think 3rd time now, classic nonprofit is if you see a gap, you will fill it. And that was the gap that was maybe identifying itself of Don not wanting to do this anymore and us realizing, well, his space is right here in the industrial park. It's not that crazy to think that we could absorb this and make this work. It still is crazy to think that we can make this work, but I think it's just to say that we never saw ourselves as CAE in multiple locations and satellite spaces and a lot of things on the road, and as well as like true, like you can't forget about community work that we're still doing. It's like we just still have we're working on a new video now of like day in the life in CAE to try to hop all around the state to see where we all might be and how all of our jobs interact with the food system in many different ways. Farm Connects being one that brings us wheels outwards a lot more than we were used to. Safe to say though, we really understood that we got through COVID, and the amount of businesses that said, if we didn't have a truck to bring those things and provisions to stores, it just would have been a whole different, like that was only 4 months beforehand. And that would have been a very rocky road if it kind of wasn't under some sort of structure and containment there. I'm out the last tab. I think it just says, thank you. I went to like, I think an hour on the dot there.
You did.
Not bragging at all, but I'm
go ahead and brag. It's great.
Just a little
so Connor's unshare your screen and we'll go to gallery view. All right. If everyone would unmute if they have questions, please go ahead and unmute. And I saw, let's see, Amy had a text. She said, "Hi, Connor, I'm up in NEK and have terrible internet, so I'll ask my question in chat. Is the Food Venture Center unique to Vermont, or do other states, communities have similar systems?"
Good question. Not unique to Vermont. A food business incubator is a common thing that gets tied to this type of building, maybe an accelerator building as well. There's one in Greenfield, Massachusetts, Western Mass. They're called the Western Mass Processing Facility. When we opened the doors here, we like ran to them and just glued ourselves to finding out how that kind of enterprise worked in working with specialty food businesses. That turned into more of a community of practice, which added Commonwealth Kitchen down in Boston, Massachusetts, Hope in Maine, which is in Rhode Island, a couple of ones out of actual Maine, the state. But we all had kind of different avenues of the services we provided. The fee structures were different, the populations were different, the types of businesses we interact with are different. But in general, it's common themes that we could talk about of helping ourselves in a kind of community of practice there. So definitely not totally unique to Vermont, but I'd say in Vermont, we are the most unique of like food hub services. I think that would be another word that you'd find of a food hub. And I think USDA's definition goes to say it's an aggregation and connected space of food, whether that's storage, whether that's processing, whether that's kind of a co-op, it could all be a food hub there. So.
Connor, hold on. Helen McIver typed in, "This was a fabulous talk. Thanks so much. I didn't know much about it and really appreciate what you are doing. I'll be looking for more of these local products too." And I had a question related to that, is identifying local products that you're working with so that people can support them by buying them.
Nice. There is a tab that on the food and farm businesses on our website, there is a list of our clients. It's all of our like past clients and everything else. We find ourselves wrestling and trying to run to upload the newest client that came through the door there. But yeah, that's probably your best connection there to understand kind of our who's on our roster.
Connor, I have a question about there obviously must be a cost to someone coming to you for the consultation and getting them up and running. Is there some type of a grant process or anything if someone has an idea and wants to go forward with a venture, whatever it is, or any kind of financial aid for some of these people, or do they have to come up with the cash on their own?
Well, so the initial consultation, that is an hour and a half meeting with the three of us, as well as then a follow-up email that kind of captures the meeting, gives them a boatload of resources, and then opens the door to a relationship and says, come back and engage us however you want. That's an $80 fee.
Yeah.
So it's like when people are running to their pockets after the hour and a half meeting, that feels good. When people are like, oops, shoot, I got home and forgot I need to pay you for all that valuable resource. That feels good. There's still times where we get pressed and be like, this is kind of a financial hardship. And then that is a perfect time as a business advisor to say, there's going to be a lot more expensive things all along this journey that you'll need to invest your time and your money into, that $80 is a flash in the pan for. So yes, there's a grant subsidy of that Vermont Housing and Conservation Board grant that supports our business advisors here. Pretty much anytime we're sitting in that quote unquote consultation meeting, I allocate my time to that grant. Daniel allocates. It's really just a kind of administrative cost to keep them in the kind of wheelhouse there. So keeps it very low, allows for that entry level, allows for somebody to just have that meeting. And if it was only $80 to like even smush their dream, so be it. But it was like they really tested the idea a bit more than them just bouncing ideas off of their friends and family that we commonly run into, or the first outside of that friends and family that test their assumptions and ask about their product. Of like, we state to them, no, we don't really want to try your product. We're not your customer. Like, you're not trying to wow us with jam right now. Like, how are you going to sell this jam? How are you going to produce this jam efficiently? Those are questions we want to hear them answer. We don't want to just say, this is wonderful, you will take over the world with this jam.
I have one other question for you. As an organization, it's not there. It seems like, there's so many wonderful products that have come out of this, and people have carried this forward with all the photos you've shown. Has there ever been any ideas to hold a some kind of a expose fair where I know we haven't been able to do some of that stuff with COVID, but in future, was there any kind of way, like kind of tagging on to Jack's question, which, gosh, if we knew the whole list of all these wonderful products, we'd go out and look to buy them. Is there any way where, like, on an annual basis, like you could have a group fair where everyone who's connected with you brings their products under one tent, and you can expose, them as well as exposing your center?
I think we've done more matchmaker events in the past of have the food producers or farms set up kind of the expo and per se, and we invite like food buyers and stores and things like that to get them engaged and have it kind of a quick matchmaking event. We hadn't I'm pretty sure it was like open to the public, but it was really just trying to foster that conversation of like true, let's talk business and talk sales and such. The other point to that is that where our communications and our marketing team at CAE has grown within the last 4 years. Subtract the last 2, and we might have already had that event that you speak of right now. It's totally in that thought process to say like we're almost at that consensus. I'd also say that in the last 2 years, there we go again. In the last 2 years, we've always owned the Atkins Field property that the Hardwick Farmers Market was at.
Yeah.
But we didn't actually administer the farmers market. And as of the last 2 years, we're the actual partnership that administers it. The farmers market manager is a CAE employee now, which has allowed us to engage our clients to say, you got a marketplace right there, right down the street. It's all then kind of a juggle of the honest reality of our On annual, the production kitchens bring, it's probably like 20 to 25 businesses that rent those kitchens. About maybe 3 or 4 of them have under a half-hour drive here. The other ones are just like, they're all coming to here to use this production facility. I get about an every other week call from Chittenden County being like, how far are you from Burlington? Oh gosh, that's an hour and a half. And it's like, well, Woz did it from Bethlehem, New Hampshire every week and developed the business. And it's really just a time commitment and figuring that all out in your life. And it's really when they're doing the side job and the other thing, and they're like, oh, I can't do that. That'd be like a whole day. And it's like, wow, you're investing a whole day of your energy into your business idea. That'd be crazy. That element of like, we hold to the Kevin Costner effect, right? We've built it and they will come to us there.
Excellent. Was always curious to know what this was all about. I had no idea other than knowing that there were commercial kitchens available for small time things that you could do. But on behalf of the Friends of Lanpher Memorial Library, I again want to thank you for your time, and you know, we have a link now, so you know, you never know, we might be calling you up at the gala and say, hey, Connor.
Sounds great. A new pipeline of clients. We always like that.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for bearing with technical audio and video and us all in the same place. Jack, I appreciate your help there, fostering that along there. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
And we know where you live.
And you know where I live.
Recording stopped.
Have a good night.
Thank you.